On today's episode, I'm joined by Dr. Nadine Macaluso, otherwise known as Dr. Nay. She's a therapist and an author whose work brings deep insight into the dynamics of trauma bonds and the journey of reclaiming the authentic self. In our conversation today, we explore how the body holds the impact of relational trauma and why spirituality and holistic practices are essential in healing these bonds. And freedom comes through reconnecting with who we truly are. This dialogue was especially meaningful to my own work because much of what I do is about helping people regulate their nervous systems as a way of healing relational wounds and restoring connection to their soul's truth. Dr. Nay's perspective beautifully complements this mission, and she offers powerful reminders that healing is both embodied and spiritual. Welcome to Season 3 of The Spiritually Curious Therapist, the podcast for mental health professionals, healers, and seekers who believe that true healing happens at the intersection of psychotherapy, nervous system science, and holistic body-centered wisdom. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, licensed therapist, Reiki master and teacher, and all-around consciousness guide. I'm here to explore how we integrate the clinical with the intuitive, the evidence-based with the energetic, and the psychological with the soulful. Each week, we will dive into practices, frameworks, and conversations that support deep healing, both for ourselves and the people we serve. And just a quick note, while I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy. So let's get curious about the body, the nervous system, the heart, and the wisdom that lives within it all. Hello, and welcome back to the Spiritually Curious Therapist. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Nadine Macaluso, known to her patients as Dr. Nay, is the real-life inspiration behind Naomi Belfort's character in The Wolf of Wall Street. She survived a turbulent 8-year marriage to Jordan Belfort marked by abuse, greed, and trauma. Following her experiences, Dr. Nay relocated to California. Her journey of trauma and healing inspired her to return to school at the age of 39, where she earned her master's in counseling and a PhD in somatic psychotherapy. She further specialized with a 2-year postdoctoral training in the neuroaffective relational model, also known as NARM. As a therapist, Dr. Nay combines her education and personal experiences to help others heal from trauma. Her practice focuses on assisting patients in connecting with their authentic selves, fostering confidence, resilience, and agency. Dr. Nay firmly believes in the potential for post-traumatic growth, instilling hope in her patients and guiding them to reach their potential in life and love. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Nay.
Oh, thank you so much for having
I'm
me.
just so excited to be talking with you for so many different reasons. Why don't we just start with you telling us a little bit more about who you are, how you got to where you are, and what it is that you're doing right now?
Sure. My story goes way, way, way back. I'm 58. I'm going to be 58 on Christmas Eve. So it's been quite a journey to get here. And I was raised in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn by a single mother who was very obsessed with psychology. So she was a feminist and she was reading Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud in the 70s, listening to Carole King, and so it was a very charmed, simple upbringing. My parents got divorced when I was 6, and that was fine. I had a Disneyland dad. He came out in and out of my life. But there was always these questions about psychology. I mean, my mother would ask me at around the dinner table at 10 years old, and she was British, and she would say, "Do you think it's nurture or nature that shapes us?" And I'd be like, "Mom, I'm 10. I don't care." But you can see how those seeds were planted. And then I was living, adjacent to New York City, which is very expensive, and I was really on my own financially at a very young age. So I decided to become a model because I needed to make money. That was really the only reason why I did it. And and then so in my early 20s, I was living on my own with my best friend in Brooklyn, going to all the best clubs in New York City, having a great time. And then as the movie The Wolf of Wall Street depicts, I went to a party in the Hamptons with my boyfriend, and that's where I met my ex, the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. And as you know, they say the rest is history. And as the movie shows, someone, well, first of all, I walked in and they were all acting strange, and I didn't know why, because they were all on Quaaludes.
Mm,
And as the movie depicts, someone did expose themselves to me. And I, as a young girl, I felt so much shame. We ran out. Said to my boyfriend, we have to leave. Because the victims always feel the shame, right? Not the perpetrators.
yeah.
I didn't know this back then. And then I really didn't think about him again, but I guess he had set his sights on me and really pursued me. And we ended up meeting again many months later at a gym. And that was it, fast and furious, fell madly in love, got married to him. And little did I know I was entering into the quintessential trauma bond.
Yes.
I had no idea, right? I was 23. Nobody was talking about narcissism, trauma bonds, pathology back then. But I knew enough that it was so crazy that I put myself into therapy. So I put myself into therapy at that time. I was with him for 8 years, and we can go into that more in the interview. But that was a very chaotic, dramatic, erratic, traumatic time for me due to his drug addiction and abuse. So I did leave him 8 years later. And then I picked up my children and I moved to California because I wanted us to have a fresh start. And I was doing all the things Californians do, drinking green juice, going to yoga, meditating. And it was through my meditation, because I was in the garment business at the time,
Mm,
that it came to me to go back to school to become a therapist because I believe therapy had saved my life.
yeah.
So I went back to school to become a therapist, got my master's, got my doctorate, and hence here I am today.
Thank goodness for us.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
okay.
important. You recently published a book called Run
Run
Like.
like hell. Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I want to reference it throughout.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so what happens is I never wanted a specialty. I like was specifically like I don't want a specialty. I want to treat everybody, personality disorders, mood disorders, couples. But what happened in my private practice is I saw all these smart, bright, beautiful women coming in, being coercively controlled, being abused, being betrayed, being financially abused, sexually abused. And I said, we have a problem. Like, how is this happening?
Yeah.
And it was also right after Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. So we were seeing so much pathology in the zeitgeist. It was illuminated at that point. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to the research because I'm a true academic. And that's when I wrote my book, Run Like Hell, which is all about how to recognize, escape, and heal from trauma bonds.
Yes. And so, okay, so tell us a little bit about trauma bonds because some people may not fully understand what a trauma bond is.
Yeah, so a trauma bond is a toxic dysfunctional relationship between two emotionally attached people. You're not going to have a trauma bond with the barrister at Starbucks, right? You have to be emotionally attached to them. You can have it between a parent and a child, between friends, between a boss and employee, but I write about it between lovers.
Mhm.
And what makes it different than just like a regular toxic relationship, right, is that one of the partners, the pathological predatory partner, wants power and control over their partner. So that's like a huge issue, right? Because that's not what love is.
Right.
And so that's in a nutshell what it is.
So there's the power and control piece, which is really important. So
Yes.
I think you say several times throughout the book that in a trauma bond, there is a power differential.
Yes.
And when we think about that or reflect on it, does that power differential have to be really obvious, or sometimes can it be just a little bit more? We can't always like sink our teeth into it and fully see it or understand it.
Yeah, the thing about the power imbalance is it's one of the conditions that has to be there,
Okay.
right? For a trauma bond to be a trauma bond, it has to have a power imbalance and intermittent reinforcement, which we can go into. But the power imbalance is key because, first of all, what happens is you can start off as equals,
Okay.
right? It's not like, somebody comes to meet you and they have all the power. It's that slowly over time, the partner loses their power, the victim.
Yep.
Okay, because why do they lose it? A, just the very fact that you love somebody, they have power over you.
Yep.
they can influence you, right? Because that's really what power means, the ability to influence other people. So also they can get power over you because they have more resources. This third thing is because they can be very dominating, very intimidating. They can instill fear in you. So the power differential, even if it doesn't look overt to outsiders, is very overt within the relationship.
Yes. Okay. I think that's a really important distinction because
Yeah.
especially as therapists and healers, when we have folks coming to us for help and
Yes.
they may be describing a relationship, and if we're thinking, oh, there's not an inherent power differential
Yes.
here, but there
But
may
there
be
is.
one.
But
Yeah.
it's implicit, it's implied in the relationship, and the two
Yes.
people in the relationship know that.
Yes. Okay. So I think that's really key. So that brings me back to something that you said earlier about your own experience when you first met your ex-husband and how things happen, like you met him and things happened fast and furious and you fell deeply in love. Can
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about what that felt like and what you
Yeah.
see with your clients around this very beginning phase of a what turns out to be an abusive or antagonistic relationship where people
Yeah.
just they don't know because it feels so good at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, because nobody would fall in love with somebody who's like screaming at them and cursing them out, right? Like you'd run like hell, as the
Right.
book says. But no, what happens is that when I met my ex, he was very charming, he was very magnanimous, he acted very generous, he acted very helpful. He was, they throw around words like you're my soulmate, I'm gonna love you forever, I'm gonna protect you, I'm going to take care of you. And so that's the initial mask of Romeo, right? So they present as this very loving, kind, generous, wonderful person, and you think you met a unicorn.
Yes.
And because also they start to mimic you and mirror you. They're very good at that. And if you haven't been mirrored as a young child, I had been mirrored, but especially if you hadn't been mirrored as a young child, that can feel like, oh my God, you like sushi, I like sushi, or you want to learn Italian, I want to learn Italian. You love tennis. And so, people will call it sometimes a twin flame. I don't use that term, but you just feel like you've met your person. And it's usually very fast and furious and very intense, and it moves at a very fast pace. And I have a saying, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. I can really appreciate that. And I think so many people have that experience, especially, when you're young,
Yes.
and you meet somebody who feels really aligned. And I
That's
love
right.
that you brought up the mirroring
Yes.
because so often we hear, well, we have so much in common, and he or she, because this can happen to men also. It's
Yes.
not just
Of
women
course.
who have
100%.
this experience.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never met somebody who is so like me. And
Yes.
like the hairs on the back of our neck should be going up a little bit when we hear this.
Yes, 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 yes. But listen, we're human beings, we're social beings, we're built for connection. And we've been, trained by culture and songs and Disney movies, right? We're gonna meet the one.
Yes.
The prince is gonna come save us. Ain't no prince coming, right? Like, but those cultural messages pounded into us time and time again matter.
They do. And I really appreciate that you said that because I think another thing that's important for people to hear and remember is that getting into a trauma bond doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
Correct. And
And
yes, and that's why I wrote my book,
yeah,
because I was so sick and tired of victims being stigmatized, having been a victim, right? I knew that I was not responsible for my ex-husband's rage and addiction.
right.
But yet, society really tells us that. Why'd you stay so long? Why didn't you just leave? You're an enabler. You're codependent. You should have known better. Well, if somebody presents themselves as this charming, magnanimous, helpful soulmate, I'm not gonna, well, now I will, and I tell my patients to, but I'm not there to decipher them.
Right.
I'm a trusting person. What you see is what you get. So I thought this is what I'm seeing is what I'm getting.
Yes, and I hear that so often. That's a big shift that happens for folks who have been through this and come out on the other side. Like, your worldview changes,
Completely.
right?
Very
And
important. Very important.
yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's really important because I feel like a lot of people, and there's truth to this, a lot of people believe that something's been taken away from them, their innocence, their belief that the world is generally a good place. And like once you've had that experience, it's hard to go back to a place of like people are generally trustworthy and kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't go back to that naivete. And there is a loss with that, and there is grief.
Yes.
Oh, there is grief with that, but it is better to understand that there are evil people out there that will present themselves as benevolent.
Yes, that is so true. So let's go back for a moment and talk about intermittent reinforcement
Yeah.
because it's such a huge piece of what you were describing in terms of why once I saw this could I not just walk away?
Yeah. 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 So intermittent reinforcement is like the most addictive behavioral pattern, okay? And that's what makes gambling what it is. And so what it is that when you first meet this partner, they are Romeo. They are loving, kind, generous, and helpful, and you have wonderful feelings towards them. You have wonderful experiences with them. But over time, the mask falls and Dirty John comes in. And that's with a cold, controlling, betraying, cruel, and you're like, wait, what happened? Where did Romeo go? And what happens is that with Dirty John, again, the feelings are very extreme and the experiences are very extreme. So you're having two different experiences within one relationship. And so you're always like wondering, and this is cognitive dissonance, which is caused by this intermittent reinforcement. Is he good? Is he bad? Am I crazy or is he crazy? Is the relationship healthy or toxic? And since this pathological person is always changing,
Mhm.
you can never land on an answer.
Right. Right. And so what I'm hearing is it keeps us wanting to come back.
Wanting to, I say, hope is the hook.
Hope is the hook. I love
Hope
that.
is
Yeah.
the hook that keeps us coming back. And then often they will love bomb us again,
Mhm.
right? I'm sorry, I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to change. Please believe me. And then we do believe them. We're going to move. But then Dirty John comes back.
Back around. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get stuck in that even when Dirty John comes back around, you get stuck in that. What can I do different to get Romeo back again?
Yes, yes. And that's when we start to distort ourselves. And that's when we have to disconnect from our authenticity, from our needs, from our values, from our beliefs. We have to lose our identity to keep the couple's identity.
Yeah, so this is a perfect segue because you write about how trauma bonds erode a person's sense of self,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you're talking about here. How do you see survivors beginning to reconnect with that authentic identity?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? Because it's like, where do we even begin? So, what I say is that the ego lives in the mind, the defenses, the adaptive survival styles really live in the mind. They live in the body too, but the real authentic self lives in the body.
Yes.
And so it's connecting back to the body, connecting, pausing, not defaulting to an answer. Because when you're in a trauma bond, you're conditioned to answer the way the pathological lover wants you to answer and behave and be. So it's pausing in everyday life and starting to connect back to the body and trusting your gut, which we know is, part of the vagus nerve.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you help people? Because I'm thinking about a lot of folks that come in to
Yeah.
see me as well. And I'm thinking, I've got folks who come in and who are willing and able to do
Yes.
the body oriented, the somatic work. But many of these folks who have had this experience, they're so disconnected from
Yes.
themselves
They're
because they
afraid.
had to
They're
be.
afraid.
They're afraid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So then we go to the inner observer. So,
Beautiful.
right. So if the body holds too many feelings, traumatic feelings, right, which is very normal because that's where it gets stored, then we go to the inner observer. And when I teach them about that, how we all have a witness in our prefrontal cortex that can observe our feelings, that can observe our thoughts, that can observe ourselves. And so that sometimes can feel safer. And if they're really a lot more intellectual, which a lot of them are,
Mhm.
what I teach them is I say to them, we have to turn the mirror back on you now. You have been obsessed and you had to say, hyper focus on this person to survive. What are your attachment patterns? What are your personality traits? What are your adaptive survival styles that you used to survive. And so I give them all assessments just to start to even orient them back to themselves.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I
So they
love
take
that.
a developmental trauma assessment, a personality trait assessment, and attachment assessment. So they now have a roadmap. They have a map of themselves.
Yeah. Which is so important because they've become so disconnected from that.
Yes. Yes, they had to become.
Yeah. I'm curious, and this is kind of kicking what you're saying up a level. Some of your descriptions around starting to come back to oneself almost mirror like a spiritual awakening in some
Mhm.
ways,
It is.
right?
It is.
Okay, yeah. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it is a spiritual awakening because there's two pieces to it. The first piece is doing the work, right? That we're talking about. And when you do that sort of work, old paradigms fall, old beliefs that you had fall, all old ways of being in the world fall, which creates space for the new. But the second piece of any work that I've discovered just in my life as a person on the planet is surrendering into the divine. Like we have to show up and do the work, but we can't control everything. We can't control every outcome. And that's a very important reckoning to have. And then to, that's how I dealt with the movie. When the movie was coming out about my life, I went to dream therapy about it. I worked it. And then at one point I said, Nadine, you have to surrender.
And what was that like for you?
It was freeing.
Mm,
It was very freeing because I was like, I'm not going to be Martin Scorsese and Paramount Pictures. Like, they're going to make this movie,
yeah,
and surrendering, even though it sounds weak, it's actually a very strong act to do because you're saying divine ordinance, whatever you call that in your life, God, goddesses, whatever spirituality you have. I'm trusting that the universe will take me where I need to go. And guess what? It worked because you and I wouldn't be having this conversation.
that's right. That's right. I hear that so often, and yet it is so difficult for, I think, us as humans to
Yeah.
relinquish that control that we believe we have.
Yeah, and I learned that after I left my ex-husband. That was a part of because I went to Codependence Anonymous. Not that I believe I was codependent, because again, I didn't enable him, but that's okay. That's all that was available back then. And
Mhm.
that really taught me that process. And so then that practice of surrendering, and then I just then took it forward, you know,
Yeah,
years later. I was like, oh, that practice is going to help me again here.
absolutely. So, along those same lines, you often talk about the importance of creating meaning after
Yes.
this type of experience. How do you see spirituality, faith, or as we were talking about, like the sense of a higher purpose helping people rewrite their narrative?
Well, I just think that if we just go around life saying, we're just emotional suffering beings that are going to be tortured, I don't think we'd get up out of bed.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, and I don't want this to be toxic positivity, right? Because some people are very resistant to this, and I respect that as well, where the people are in their journey. But for me, I believe that we are meaning making beings.
Hmm.
And that when we can make meaning out of our suffering, saying, okay, I went through this horrible thing, but I did get cracked open. It was an opportunity for me to connect even deeper to my authentic self, to learn about myself. It just doesn't seem useless.
Right. Right.
Right. And through that process, I've seen people connect back deeper to their spirituality as well, because they've needed something to lean on. So, I had breast cancer, for instance, and I went to this amazing church in Los Angeles called Agape with
Mhm.
Dr. Michael Beckwith. And leaning into spirituality helped me through that whole process. And so I found meaning in that instance of like, okay, I went through this scary thing, but I got connected back to God.
Yeah. So there's a,
There's a connection
mhm.
of the dots.
Yeah. So what it makes me think about is choice,
Yes.
right? And we can choose, and we don't have choice over a lot of things, but we do have choice around where we put our attention
Correct.
and what we want to believe or the way we want to move through the
That's
world.
right. The way we want to see it, right?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's even what therapy is about. It's about a shift in perception.
Yes.
So we could get very stuck in why this happened to me. I can't believe I'm going through this. And not that those feelings aren't valid. I call them those my mad Lucia moments where I just allow myself the space to have those.
Mm.
But then I'm like, okay, now what?
Yes, right. So I always say, the question you're left with is, how do I want to show up to this?
That's right. That's right. And so there is a choice in that. And showing up in these ways of learning to understand about myself, connect deeper to myself, connect deeper to my spirituality, have just gotten me through these personally through these horrible things. Right. And so I know they work.
Right. And I love that. I love that you're bringing in your personal experience as a way of reminding you that this is a pathway through.
This is a pathway through. Yeah. Because, Carl Jung said that, you can only take your patients as far as you're willing to go.
That's right.
Right. So what would happen is when I had my office in Los Angeles and I had my office downstairs and I'd be going down the stairs and I'd be like, okay, so that's why that happened to me, like thinking about the person I was going to see. So that's why that happens to me. You
You
know,
bring all these life experiences.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to have the same experience as me for me to obviously do clinical work with them, but it does help, right?
absolutely, because it gives you a framework and an understanding of what this person might be bringing to
That's
you
right.
through.
That's right. And now, of course, they have a different childhood, so they come with their own, issues around that, and everybody's unique. This is the ironic part. As I've gotten older, I've realized life is just a huge paradox. As unique as we are is as similar as we are.
Yes, it is very true. Well, there's something about what is interesting is there's something about like understanding human nature. Like
Yes.
for instance, intermittent reinforcement and how that works.
Right.
Like blows the top off of this idea of trauma bonding and how it isn't a cognitive thing
Yes.
that you can think
Sure.
your way through, right? Like this
Yes.
is a nervous system
Yes.
attachment
Yes.
is at a very physiological level.
That's right. That's right. Because the dopamine and the oxytocin spikes and the cortisol, right? And
Yep.
the adrenaline, right? So you're going back and forth between those two, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're stuck in that loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As I write in my book, the research showed that animal trainers that use intermittent reinforcement, the animals bond to them 230% more.
Which was crazy when I read that.
Yeah.
230% is,
It's crazy. So then it also takes again a lot of the stigma off of the victim, right? When we understand, I always say we have to name it to tame it.
yep. Yeah, absolutely. So along these same lines, when you're thinking about interventions, and we've talked about how like this, yes, there's room for like CBT and psychoeducation and cognitive understanding of what's happening. But when we're talking about interventions, what kind of holistic or somatic interventions have you found to be most useful for folks who are working through untangling these bonds?
Yeah, what I have found is educating the women that I work with about the vagus nerve,
Yeah.
which is the 10th cranial nerve that comes out of the back of our skull, over the front of our body and into our viscera. And it allows us to know whether the world is feeling dangerous or safe.
Yep.
And so that makes sense to them, right? Because that goes into your viscera, then it sends the message back up to your brain.
Mhm.
And so, because they've been so dysregulated, I mean, I was terrorized in my relationship. And, there's so much fear in your nervous system at this point. So, you really do need to tone your vagus nerve. And so, I rely on a lot of Ariel Schwartz's work.
Mhm.
Highly recommend people that feel very dysregulated. And she has so much good work around, butterfly tapping or humming. Or, I always wondered, why do I love it when my ears get rubbed during a massage? I couldn't figure it out. Then once I learned from her, I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I love it. That's the most vagus nerve are in your ears,
They're in here, yeah.
right? And then all of the facial massages that she talks about,
Mhm.
the VU sounds from Peter Levine, right? So I find that when they're alone, everybody can hum.
Yeah.
Everybody can figure out ways, or putting a warm heating pad over your vagus nerve in the evening.
Hmm.
So I found that actually practical things like tapping that they can do when they're feeling dysregulated is very important. Or I lean into a lot of Peter Walker's work about flashbacks,
Mm,
because a lot of women have flashbacks. So he wrote an amazing book on complex PTSD. And so also, I'm having a flashback right now, but saying to your amygdala, that was then, this is now.
yeah,
Right? Having mantras that you can say to yourself to soothe yourself, because let's be real, whether you've been in a trauma bond or not, we haven't been taught how to soothe ourselves.
that is very true.
That's why everybody reaches for drinks and drugs and, you know, and prayer is another really important thing
Mhm.
that people can use, or rituals, writing the letter to your ex and burning it, right? So there's so many things that we can use our body in that just people just don't think about.
Yeah, and I think that those things are so important. I really appreciate the vagal toning and also just the understanding that this is complex trauma
Right.
that people are,
Yes.
recovering from, and it is a true body oriented
Yes.
experience.
Yes. 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 And often when I'm working with people, some people can't even find a safe space in their body,
Yeah.
right? So maybe we might have to go to like their left knee, like this.
Yeah.
So I understand that, but other things that I'll have people do is really grounding and, sitting on the chair and really, it's not just putting your feet on the floor, but it's pressing your feet into the ground and like, so that you really feel your feet, you feel supported by the earth,
Yes.
right? So there's all these little tricks. And then I have to see what resonates with them.
Hmm.
'Cause I'll be like, I'm not going to do that. I don't like that. So then it's just what resonates with them, what works. But then this is the thing, it has to become a practice.
Yes. So important. It can't be a one and done.
No, you have to, maybe have a glimmer practice in the morning where you name 5 glimmers and breathe,
Hmm.
to start your day off. But then you have little snacks of vagus nerve, vagus toning and, behaviors throughout the day. And then you end your day with something.
Yes. I often talk about a glimmer or resourcing diet.
Yeah, yeah. Or, I was working this morning with a woman and, we were talking about like, I just happen to be her competent protector that she brings in. And so, bringing that image of me saying something nice to her right before she goes to sleep, right? So there's all these tricks and you just have to figure out which one you like with your therapist.
Yes, and sticking with it. And one of the things that I know that I've experienced and come to talk with folks more about is how important it is to really be with it and allow your nervous system to take it in.
Yes.
Because oftentimes we do these things, and I'm thinking about even practices like breath work and yoga and even meditation.
Yeah.
If we are prone to being intellectual and or we are recovering from
Yeah.
complex trauma, we do it to check off the boxes,
Yes.
but
Yes.
we're not
Good point.
necessarily
Yes.
fully integrating
Yes.
it.
Yeah, it's like Rick Hansen has that beautiful practice of taking in the good. So he
Yes.
says when something good happens, don't just brush it off. Be with it for a good 20 to 30 seconds.
Hmm.
And that's also about slowing down, right? Our lives and pausing.
And noticing
More in the pause.
the pause, exactly. Yeah. Like awe activations where you're like just kind of stopping and noticing and just being with, so important.
Yes, yes, yes. Because trauma just, wants us to swing into hypervigilance or into hypo.
Yeah, exactly. And we have ping-ponging between the two very often.
Yes,
If that window of tolerance, you know, is small, then that's all we're doing because there's no middle.
that's right. We never get to social engagement system of safety,
Yes.
right? But you can get there. It just takes work.
Right. We have to put the work in. So what we're talking about here in terms of these little bits, like putting a diet together,
Yes.
being consistent, reminds me of titration, which is
Yes,
really important in somatic work. And especially when we are introducing safety to a nervous system that is very
correct.
much defended. We can't do it all at once because the nervous system will counter-constrict it. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about what titration might look like for somebody who is coming out of a relationship? And while I'm thinking about it, piggybacking on that, how to come out of a trauma bond safely.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing, because there's two different questions, right? So titration, what it means really is just like taking it very slowly, right? So what happens with the healing process is that women just want to heal.
Yeah.
Dr. Nay, why aren't I healing good enough? Why aren't I healing quick enough? Why isn't this, And so a lot of people get resistant to the slowing down and taking it bit by bit by bit, but you have to do it because it just won't work like that. But I see people get stuck in not wanting it to go slow and not wanting it to be a practice because they're in so much pain, they just want to feel better,
Yeah.
right? So it's validating that yes, I know you just want to get out of it, but this is a process and you have to do it slowly to keep yourself safe. And to get women to leave safely, that's a whole thing where you have to now wear the mask.
Mm,
If you are in a trauma bond and once, as soon as you have radical acceptance, because you have to radically accept you're in it,
yep.
right, to change it. And that's a hard thing to do. So once you radically accept that you are in a trauma bond, you're living with this person, you have to wear the mask and not let them see you coming. Because a person that wants power and control over you is not going to be like, see you later, honey, it's been great.
Hmm.
We know the most dangerous time is when a woman leaves, and that post-separation abuse is real. So you
Yeah.
have to wear the mask and you have to get super prepared. Get a trauma-informed therapist, read my book, get highly educated about this. If you need a lawyer, get a lawyer. Make sure all your documents are organized, make sure your passport, all those sorts of things. Clean out anything digitally that you don't want them to find. And that's very hard. I'm working with a woman right now, but she's actually doing it. She's leaving a 32-year marriage.
Wow.
And she's doing all of this work in the house while he's home, but she's doing it. And so you have to do it because the second he knows she's leaving, we're going to have her in a domestic violence shelter. Me and her attorney are all in on it.
Hmm.
And she'll be safe.
So making sure that you have resources is really important.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you cannot do this alone. Resilience cannot be built in isolation. It just can't be.
Oh, I love that. Resilience cannot be built in isolation. That is so true.
It's so true. We need each other and we need safe people. And, that's why I started my community because a trauma bond is so difficult to break. So that's why we have community where we get validated. I have meditations, guided meditations made just for trauma bond survivors, right? I have worksheets. I teach a course. We bring in experts. Like it takes a lot.
Yes. So great segue. Can you tell us about all of the things that you are doing and that you have to offer for folks?
So I have a private practice, which I love because I just love my job and it gives my life so much meaning, as we were talking about, right? It's so fulfilling.
Yes.
People are like, dude, isn't it depressing? I'm like, nope, it's not. You get that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then I wrote my book and I was like, but that's not enough. And it's expensive to go to therapy.
Yes.
I really wanted to democratize what I do.
Mm.
I have the most misogynistic movie on the planet that I get to exploit to help women everywhere. I couldn't have planned it better myself, honestly.
I love it. Yeah. So what a way to flip the script, right?
Right. And so I started this online community. It's only $30 a month. It's $1 a day. We run support groups. We have our own social feed. I teach my book as an online course once a week. And then I bring in experts to come and to teach them weekly because that's what it takes. And within the course, there are meditations, worksheets, video journal prompts, and videos of me teaching. So we're attacking it from all angles.
Yes. Yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and
Beautiful.
it's working. I just started in February and it's like women are changing.
You're seeing
Yeah, I'm
healing
seeing
happen and
transformation. Yes.
yes, what a
Yes.
beautiful
Yes.
thing.
Yes. And the most beautiful part for me is seeing the way they are with each other.
Yes, because this can be so lonely
Yeah,
and
because they
isolating.
isolate us.
Yes, right. Well, yes, just by virtue of being in a trauma bond, you've
Yeah.
been isolated.
So, and then that you feel so alone. And what I've discovered is we're so much stronger together.
Right.
We just are. Just even you and I having this conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Energetically, we're just so much stronger together. And women, we need each other.
So the importance of not only resourcing, but also community.
Yeah. It's blown me away. I knew it would be good, but when I watch the feed and they're all like, you can do it, we believe you, and they have a place just to dump everything without judgment with
Mm.
their peers.
Yeah. And so I will have the contact information
Yeah.
in the show notes. But how can people who are listening to this, other therapists or folks who are,
Yeah, yeah, you can just go to my website, drnae.com, where I have so many like trauma bond assessment, pathological lover assessment, all these free assessments, tons of free worksheets there. But you can also find out about the course, get my book, and I post every single day on Instagram. My Instagram is pretty crazy, but it's fun
yep,
and
I'm following it.
educational. I call edutainment, right? So that's the real Dr. Nadine. So please come join me there. And yeah, and TikTok, the Wild West of social media, Dr. Nay, NAELMFT. But yeah, it's all out there for everybody to take advantage of.
What a blessing that you are offering this to folks who maybe even are just kind of dipping their toe into the idea that they might be in this type of relationship. I think a lot of times, well, as you know, we people don't know it.
They don't know it because we used to think of domestic violence as the like one incident physical model incident, right?
Yes.
But coercive control is invisible,
Right.
you know,
Right.
disparaging, micromanaging, insulting, emotional abuse. And usually it's done behind closed doors.
And often you will hear people say, I wish he would just hit me.
Oh, isn't that great? I mean, but we know why, but it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
And
then they would know. Then there would be proof.
yeah, when I got kicked down the stairs, that was my turning point. I
Yeah.
was like, what is happening? Like this is okay, this is out of control. But it's unfortunate. But again, back then nobody was talking about coercive control. I mean, we're just starting to talk about it now.
Right. Nobody really understood it or knew what it was, or yeah.
Yeah, maybe the theorists, that started it, like Evan Stark, but that was it. It hadn't trickled down yet. I mean, I was in therapy, my therapist wasn't even talking about it.
Yeah. So it's so important that we do start talking about it so that folks can identify if they are having this experience that A, they are not alone, B, it is not their fault, and C, there is help.
So important, those three things. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
One more thing I'm thinking about as I say that, can you share with folks why is it that people will leave and then go back? So I think the average is like 7 times.
Yeah, yeah. They leave and go back because hope is the hook, because the pathological partner is very manipulative, right? And so they get tricked by the manipulation. And I think they also go back because they believe that that's love.
Mm, hmm.
They're so conditioned at this point to be like, okay, maybe this is what love is, or they don't want to be alone, or they fear they're never going to meet somebody again. I think a lot of that is very fear-based too. Or listen, maybe you're financially dependent,
Sure.
right? You have children, you might fear post-separation abuse. I've had many women go back because the pathological partners have, taken them to court and said they don't feed their children. And so there's a myriad of reasons. And don't feel shame if you go back because you will eventually leave.
Yeah. Well, and I think that brings us full circle to the importance of turning one's attention back on themselves and reconnecting with their own inner wisdom so
Yes.
that they can build the resilience and the confidence and the community and the resources that they need in
Yeah.
order to make that decision.
Yes. And again, you can't do it alone. So that's another reason why women go back, right? They try to do it on their own.
Yes. Okay. So that's really important.
It's really hard to do that. And it doesn't mean you're a failure or you're not strong enough. It's just this trauma bond is real. And this pathological partner is very persuasive and controlling. So you need other people to help you through it.
It's almost like you all, in addition to everything else, you need that attractor on the other side
Yeah,
that's like pulling you.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say it. That's like, you can do it, come over.
Yeah, which is what your community is providing for
It
people.
is. It is. It is.
So
Yeah.
wonderful, so wonderful. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to share?
Just abuse is always the fault of the abuser. And
Yeah,
to know that, because the abuser blames us, because they victim signal and pretend to be the victim. And then society blames us. And I think reflective people are very quick to blame themselves. But just know that, if you reacted to them torturing you, that's normal, that's human. That doesn't mean you too are the abuser, and that it's not okay.
yeah. You made me think of one more thing. We could go on all day
I
long.
know, we could talk all day. So
I
great.
was-
So great.
But I think this is really important. And you talk about this in the book. There, for people to just be able to reflect on. The research has shown that there are people with particular characteristics who tend to be more susceptible to this type of relationship. Can you just take a moment to talk about, because I think that would help people just kind of self-identify and
Yeah, in 2019, I read Sandra Brown's book, Women Who Love Psychopaths. And this is where I learned that, and you can take the five-factor model of personality traits to see which traits you have. And they measure openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and agreeableness. And what her research showed was that women that scored high in conscientiousness and agreeableness were perfect prey. And I scored very high in both.
yeah. So oftentimes people who are more agreeable and conscientious are going to be more likely to enter into these types of relationships and stay.
And stay.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're loyal, you're tolerant, and you're driven,
Yes.
which are all
Yes.
great things, but they get weaponized by the pathological person.
Yes. And I think that's so important because we don't want to throw the, I hate to use this term because it's so overused, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Right,
Like these
right.
are all traits that are really important and wonderful
Yes.
traits, and they're easily weaponized. I like the way you say that.
And that's why it's important to understand yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It all comes back to ourselves,
It
right?
always does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the
Oh,
time
my
to
pleasure. Thank you
to
so much for
chat
having
with me. Yeah, and I really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. And I'll
me.
make sure that everything's in the show notes so that people can access everything that you have to offer.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to take the next step in your own healing, I invite you to explore two ways to go deeper. My Healing Relational Trauma with Heart Math mini course is a gentle introduction to regulating your nervous system and creating inner safety. It is a self-paced course, and I will put the link to that in the show notes. And for those who are ready for a fuller journey, From Lock to Liberation is my new signature group program that combines sound, nervous system repair, and soul work to help you release the trauma bonds and reconnect with your true self. And so, if you want to sign up to get notification for when that goes live, I will put that in the show notes as well. And of course, check out Dr. Nay's website, her Sir Thriver community, and her new book, Run Like Hell. I highly, highly recommend. Thanks for joining me today on The Spiritually Curious Therapist. I hope something in this conversation sparked insight, inspiration, or even a little soul level curiosity. If you're enjoying the podcast, I'd love it if you would take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone you know who's walking the healing path. You can connect with me more deeply over on Instagram at Holistic Heart Healing, or visit Therachi.com and JourneyWithKindredSouls.com for upcoming courses, healing sessions, and more ways to journey together. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep following the wisdom of your heart.